Okay, excellent.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the patience as we worked out the technical difficulties in here. And thanks for throwing some great recommendations of movies and TV shows in the chat while we're getting started. Tess, that was going to be mine as well. Peanut Butter Falcon is one of my favorites. That's the one I always recommend to people. So thank you. Welcome to our August Assessment Directors meeting. We are glad to have you all here with us, both virtually and the people that are here in the room with us. We are looking forward to lots of information. We know this is a busy time of year with people, some people in brand new roles and some people who've been here for a while, and just a busy time of year with everything. Getting started again. I just saw Brooke's comment about it. Yeah. Made me giggle. That's funny. So Emily, will you switch to the next quote as we keep up with our movies and TV shows in the chat. Love that. So our quote this this month is from the book To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It's the quote from the author Jenny Han. She says, "I've always loved the first day of school better than the last day of school. Firsts are best because they are beginnings." And I think we can all feel that as starting school these last couple of weeks or days. Those firsts are always exciting and lots of new challenges, but also interesting things for us to dig into. So some updates for everybody. The first updates are from our board meetings. Earlier this month in August, we had a lot of contracts that were approved at our board meeting. So the first one that our team was excited about was we signed our contract with Cambium for 9th and 10th grade assessments. We're starting work on development. The development team is going to get into that later because we need a lot of help from you to reach out to educators in 9th and 10th grade to participate in all of our item development that we have coming up. So we're starting all that item development this year so that we have a good bank for when we administer the new 9th and 10th grade assessments in the spring of 27. So remember that this year we still have Utah Aspire Plus. We'll still be administering the Utah Aspire Plus assessments in spring of 26, but we're starting on that development cycle and need some help from you all to get teachers involved with that process. The other contract we signed was with our WIDA assessment. So we'll be administering WIDA for another 5 years if we keep this contract the same. And so that has kicked off. And then additionally, we signed our contract with Avant for the DLI assessment, which is the stamp test. Elise is going to talk a little bit more about that. In the coming slides, we'll have some trainings for this new assessment for those that participate in the DLI program. Additionally, at the Standards and Assessment Committee meeting, we discussed our ESSA amendment. That's going to be going to the full board this September. So in September, they'll be discussing and reviewing and hopefully approving our ESSA amendment that includes some information about growth and school improvement and some updates on our alternate ELP assessment and growth and calculating growth there. So some of those things, and we appreciate the feedback that many of you provided in public comment on the ESSA amendment. And additionally, in our September board meeting, we will be discussing our RISE ELA standard setting cut scores. So earlier this month, we held that standard setting where we brought in educators from across the state to help determine where those cut scores should be for the new RISE ELA assessments. We'll be presenting those to the full board in September and asking for them to approve those cuts. If the board approves those cuts, which we anticipate they will in September, those go back to Cambium, and Cambium goes forward with applying those cuts to the student scores from this past spring. And then you should be receiving student reports and your actual LEA reports in like mid-October. That's our timeline for reports. We'll be talking next month in the AD meeting about what those reports will look like. You'll see some changes to the ISRs because what we assessed was different than what we've assessed in the past on ELA. So there will be changes to the ISRs, that individual student reports. So you'll be seeing a preview of those in September and talking through what will be the information that teachers will be receiving on an individual student level versus the aggregate like class level or school level. So we'll be discussing that in September after we ensure the board approves the recommended cut scores from the educators this earlier this month. Okay.
There was just a question about 9-10 interims and rise.
Oh, there we go. Okay, looks like we've got that question answered. Yeah, so we'll work on the summative. For now, those the benchmarks are still available in UTIPs. I talked with the teacher just on Monday this week that said UTIPs is still around with a question mark. So just a reminder that UTIPs is still available and the high school benchmarks are available in UTIPs. We have science and math and ELA, high school 9th and 10th grade benchmarks available in UTIP. So if you have questions about those and where those might be available, you can reach out to Elise. Okay, and then another update, we had a TAC meeting yesterday. It was like a mini meeting. We only had a couple of hours and we were able to provide or get some feedback from our technical advisory committee on some of our transition plans as we transition from our end of grade level test to an end of course assessment in high school. Our Cambium folks presented some of the standard setting results that we'll be planning on sharing to our board in September. And then they also presented some preliminary RISE and UA Plus results. We'll be interested when those get finalized and we'll be looking forward to sharing those with you all in probably in the September AD meeting. And then finally, we also have a reminder we have another upcoming TAC meeting on November 19th, as well as an APAC meeting for those that are involved in APAC. That's on November 3rd. So watch for information about those meetings coming up in the coming months. I think that was all of my updates. Yeah. And then one of the things previously the assessment directors had asked for was more like professional learning for you all. So we've asked Aaron and his team to present to us some of the things that they're working on in data and statistics. And so Aaron will be here this month and then again in September to share some of the things that they're working on. So I think Aaron is online.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yep,
Thanks,
and
Aaron.
we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. And I might be in other months as well, so it's not just 2 months and then they cut me off. So anyway, just kind of sharing with you.
Oh, you're good.
So today I'm just going to share with you what's going on with the Gowers General Coefficient of Similarity. This is the Compare Schools report that we have on the Data Gateway. I know a number of you use it. I'm going to go through and explain what's going on behind the scenes, a little bit about the calculations, and then I'll be sharing some updates that we have on it, and I'll share a temporary development site. When I say temporary, it's the testing dev site that we're working with on a contractor to update this with new information. You should have received, go ahead and move to the next slide if that's okay. You should have received with this information, or you will receive 2 Excel spreadsheets, which is basically the entire state with the Gowers coefficient. It is for the 2024, let me restate that. I'd have to go look at it again. I believe it's the 23-24, but we'd be updating again. Anyway, we're going back and forth and looking at the components, but there's some updates to discuss. But with that said, how does this thing work? So the comparison schools is we target a school saying, when we look at this information, you select your school that you want to compare to 20 others throughout the state. We map out characteristics and then we use some weights to say, this is how you're similar. So for example, if you are a charter school and you want to compare yourself to the traditional neighborhood school that's around the corner, is it a fair comparison? Well, it's a comparison as in close proximity, but is the makeup between the student body and the characteristics that you have similar to what is in the neighborhood school? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And so this is our process of getting to how to do good selection. So go ahead and go to the next slide if you don't mind. So there are multiple ways to compare schools, as everyone knows. You can look at student demographics, you can look at school characteristics, you can look at student performance, you could look at staffing, you could look at the funding and finances, and you can look at location. There's multiple methodologies or approach to compare schools. There's nothing wrong with any one of these approaches. Go ahead and go to the next slide. What we did a number of years ago is we looked at school characteristics, we looked at your student demographics, and we looked at your location as basically the foundation. There may come a point where we start adding in finance. Maybe we'll be adding staffing. I don't know how that would work in the future. These are options that we could play with and bring in the future. But for right now, we're looking at these three characteristics. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So how are schools identified? We use Gower's general coefficient of similarity. Basically, what this does is it measures two objects in this multi-dimensional space and says how close are they to them based upon the information that we feed into the coefficient. Or into this process. Now, in the past, for those who've been in your job for a while, we used to use a thing called a polytopic vector analysis, or PVA. It was similar in process, but it was based upon anchoring three models, if you will, of a school, like a large suburban wealthy, a rural smaller school, and I forget what the third one was, but then we used to coordinate each school in between those three data points and then do a distance calculation. We retired that and we used the Gowers, and we've been using the Gowers now for multiple years. We find it is a much better similarity tool that we put in place, and the feedback we received is, yes, this really does share or compare like schools. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Someone, there we go. Thank you. So as we've looked at this, though, some questions or requests have come in since we've had this out and running for the past number of years. And so we've added some new components to it. I'll talk about them as we go through now. So right now, just explaining, first thing that we look at, or when I say first, the things that we look at is the grade served. We put in a calculation saying, this school, what's your grade range? And then we do that for every school, and we make sure that those are lining up. So a high school could be compared to a junior high. You could have an overlap. A K-12 could be compared to multiples just because of the way it overlaps. So we look at one, the grades you have. Two, then, and this is a new type or a new element, we've added school type. In the past, and what you see currently on the data gateway is just regular schools. When we say regular schools, we didn't have alternative, we didn't have the online schools, we didn't have the youth and care, we didn't have the special ed. We've gone through and we've, upon request, we say, can we add these in there and have a more robust comparison? So we've added school type into the calculation and run that. In addition to that, when we first did it, because location was a component, we didn't know how to really add in an online or virtual, especially when we first rolled out the concept of comparing. There weren't a lot of online schools that were up and operating, and they just had just a radically different makeup back when we started this process. But now, because of COVID and the change, this has become much more universal, or there a lot more schools are available. So we've added in an online or virtual as a flag or a component that then we would compare. We've had sector. This has been in for a while. Are you a traditional district or are you a charter school? We do use the location code, which is, this is city, town, suburb, rural. What we have, and this is based upon one, what the national setting is that we get from the federal government. We utilize that, but we also use the necessarily existent small school as a component to just make sure that we're lining those up correctly. And then finally, we use 7 student demographic components, which are made of your low income, your racial minority, your enrollment size, your English learners, your special education, mobility, and gender. So if you can go to the next slide, and just this kind of lays out the 13 points or the 13 elements that we feed into this algorithm. And we look at each of these characteristics for your schools. But really what's more important is the next slide is the weighting that we utilize or apply to it. So let's move to the next slide if you don't mind. And this is kind of to illustrate when we do our calculations, what do we care about as really strong anchors between your schools. And so as you can see in there, your low income is a 2.25 weight. Your racial minority is a 2. Your English learner is a 1.25. Those have, and also your school type being, are you your traditional school or your special education school? Are you a youth and care school? So those have higher weights. Other components that we've added inside of that virtual online, we found that a higher weight really helped make sure that we're comparing likes to likes. Other things that have as much as big as an impact. So you can see, for example, inside of there, the necessarily small school existence has a very small one. And sorry, my screen on my side just blipped out on me. Okay, with that, so just understand that's the calculation that we put together. If anyone's interested in seeing how we put that calculation, feel free to reach out and I can share that with you. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And so hopefully you're familiar with this page. This is just a screenshot example we put inside of there. Again, you had your English language arts, you had your mathematics and your science inside of there. And this, if you wanted the data gateway, it would basically say, here's your, you'd select your school, and then we give you a list of 20 like schools that you can compare to. What we've heard is, hey, I want to look at something more than just the RISE Utah Aspire Plus scores. Can I see, for example, the Acadian score? Can we see the WITA score? Can we see the graduation score? And so on and so forth. And so we've been working on that as well. Let's go ahead to the next slide, if you don't mind. Let's see, does that? So I'm going to paste into the chat that link on top, and I'm going to be sharing that. If I can share my slide, I think I can, or share my screen. Nope. Will you allow me to share my screen real quick? Let's see.
Yeah, I just have to stop sharing and then you can.
Okay. Let me try it one more time. And here we go. And you'll have, so everyone will have access to this. I just, again, put this in the chat. Couple things to note while you're looking at this. One, this is all artificial or fake data. So don't freak out if you're looking at your school and you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. It's all fake data. The results don't make sense. What I need you to think about is, does the design and the functionality of this work? So a couple changes that we've done inside of here is, one, we've changed it up because this also has come from a number of superintendents where they said, I really would like to be able to choose and compare LEA to LEA. So instead of just school to school, can I see a comparison? And so this view you're seeing inside of here is basically the LEA comparison. So Alpine, and by the way, this information is the newest run comparison. So Alpine is most like Davis, then Jordan, then Nebo. Obviously, when Alpine gets split, we're going to have to rerun it. There's going to be a change, and we might not say they are, we'll see what they, what will come out of that. So that's the first change that you'll see inside of there. You can switch it up to school, and actually it'll probably default to school. And I'm just picking the school on top. Again, fake numbers, But as you go through here, this would be the new updated comparison that we're working on. So to give you an example, in Uinta, nope, I'm gonna pick on a different one. Utah Online, for example, was not available in the past. It now would become available. So that's an example of an online school. And you can see that this online school is getting compared to these other online schools. If you had like an alternative school. So if I come in here, in the past, it wasn't available. Let's see, Two Rivers up in Weaver is an example of one. So this is now available in this report. When I say, again, this is a test report, don't pay attention to the values. These are all fake information. It's the functionality that I'm looking for feedback from this group. The other thing that we're building in or working on is the ability to change out your indicators. So right now it just says RISE. Again, it's dummy data. We have WIDA. What we anticipate seeing is a drop-down list for multiple assessments or multiple measures that you would look at. So for example, you would see RISE hyphen math, RISE hyphen science, language arts. You would have the WIDA, you would have the Acadians literacy, you'd have the Acadians numeracy, you'd have graduation, ACT. That's what we're in the process of working on and building out. So if I switch, for example, again, fake data, don't jump to weird conclusions, but the thought is you would have a proficiency side, which would show you this, again, this information in this column. And then if there is a growth or an additional metrics that we would line up inside of there, would be on the side behind it. Or when I say behind, on the side. So this, for example, is showing like a hypothetical MGP score. My team has already shared some visual cues and feedback with the developer behind this, so we are working on this. But I just wanted to give this group an opportunity to take a look at the functionality and the design that we're working on and thinking to get up and running for you, hopefully within about a month and a half within this school year, and make it available for everyone. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's go ahead, but back to the PowerPoint, if that's okay.
Give me just a second, I have to get back in.
Problem. And I'll be monitoring the text. Obviously, well, I'm only here for a few more minutes before I have to jump to my next meeting.
Was a question in the chat for you. Will we still be able to see the similarity percent or just the rank number?
The answer is yes, it would be the similar percentage. So we've already talked with our contractor, say that's really important that we show that one. That rank number just goes to 20, and it's like, it's just it's unrelated numeric value. So we wouldn't care about that one. So for that question, Brian, yes, it would be the percent similar. Hal asked, would Aaron be open to adding the accountability scores by areas, growth, achievement? And I haven't thought that far yet. That's a great question. That's an idea. That's another huge data set that would be loading into it. But that's obviously we could do that. Would we? And then the last question I see from Brooke, would we be able to select subject area and grade level in the comparison? Great questions. I will write these down and we will consult. Obviously, I'm coming to you guys for ideas and feedback. That's what we have so far. If you look at the slide, go ahead and advance forward. You can just see that there's some examples of what we put together. Again, LEA comparisons, school comparisons, and then you're selecting of the indicators that we're working on. So if you're saying, hey, can I do this? The answer is there's some complexities behind it. We're open to all your feedback and ways to improve that. Go ahead, and you can move to the end of my slide set. Are there any questions from the group about how this works, or if you had information of the Excel spreadsheets. If not, again, anticipate this will be available fairly soon. We're still working with our contractor to get this built out. And as the assessments become available, it'll probably be a rolling process that we'll be working on as well. What I'm really interested in this point is when you look at this data, don't use the assessment results that you're seeing in this mock dashboard. Look at the comparison results themselves. Do the comparisons make sense to you? When you look up, for example, your alternate school or your special ed school, your online school, and you see that comparison, are we getting what you feel is the most reliable or comparable schools? If you want to go beyond just the dashboard and want to look at the Excel spreadsheets that we shared with you, that's another way to look at that. So that would be the first most important feedback I can receive from the group. And again, just please email me as saying, yeah, this seems like the algorithm. Again, this is the Gowers coefficient of similarity. The algorithm and the weights really are producing those schools that we feel are the most similar. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. So moving forward, because I had just a couple of quick things. First one has to do with your LEA testing plans. This number got updated. We're up to 115 now. LEAs have submitted those plans because some of you saw the slide deck, I think, and submitted 3 right away, and a couple more since last night when I last updated this slide. Starting next week, though, we're going to be looking at whoever hasn't finished that LEA testing plan, and I'm just going to start sending out some gentle reminders to please complete these required plans that were due last Friday for the code. So just so you know, you're late, but we're still taking those plans. We'd like to get that data, please.
I was just gonna say, friendly but firm.
Friendly reminder.
Just a gentle reminder. We understand, we know things are busy. It's the beginning of the year. We've noticed the same uptick in emails and things happening and all the other issues that go with it. But we do need to get those done. So moving on, just some.
Question. Where are we uploading them?
Well, there's a survey that's been sent out in the AD memo and on a previous AD thing. I don't have the link in here to this right now. Sorry, I sent that out so much. I just kind of got tired of copying and pasting it.
Check your AD memos.
Check your AD memo that's in there. Definitely in the last one. And that link should still be working. I haven't shut down the survey or anything. It's just up and running. Obviously, I just collected a few more today. So moving on, just some helpful links. Oh, hey, there's a link.
Oh, there you go.
I've lost count how many times I've copied and pasted this. So many emails have been asking for it. It's been copied and pasted ad nauseum for me. So did you miss our new AD roundup? That's okay. It's on our assessment channel. You can see the slides from it. You can see the roundup on our channel. And if you want to check it out, if you want to know who some of the new people are, or maybe get to know us a little bit better, it was actually kind of a fun meeting, I thought. It was just nice to learn some things, even about my colleagues I didn't even know, and I've been here a while. So that was definitely a very nice meeting we had together, and hopefully we can continue things like that in the future. Moving on, a couple other helpful links. Next slide, please. Educator ethics training. Please do not be the reason why we have an ethics problem. Oh, don't be that guy. It has, last year we had a lot of issues, and I say a lot, it was significant. We don't like those issues. We don't like it when UPAC even gets involved on some of these. It's just, we want to make sure everyone has a good year. We ran into some actually really great schools doing our assessment visits, where they talk about how they not only give this training at the beginning of the year, but also right before testing starts for those who might be doing the testing. And it has gone so smoothly for them because everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Everyone's reading the required manuals, everyone's following the protocols. And it's definitely, they go, yeah, we have to use another faculty meeting to do it, but it has been so worth it. So just remember, train, and maybe train a little more. And then we won't have any of these phone calls that come in going, hey, we have an issue, or there's been a breach or something like that. And so, and we are gonna be working on some protocols in the future. We'll bring you some of that in the future on things that we're hoping to do to help mitigate this and create some protocols if this does happen. So we actually do have a standard operating procedure for when these things, if they do happen in the future. But just so you know, the links are here. The training's been updated for the year, and we don't forget to get that educator signature form. People keep asking, do we send that to me? No, you don't send those to me. You keep those on file, because if something does happen, and someone asks, maybe from UPEC, can I see these? You have to be the one to produce them. And so make sure you have those on file somewhere and you keep them secure. And that'll be great. How long are we required to keep those forms? I would say at least a couple of years. I don't think there's a super long time for those.
Yeah, so you have to keep them, while the teachers are employed at the school, you keep them.
Okay.
There's, I can look up the policy about records retention, but it's while people are still working there, you hang on to them.
Hang on to them while they're still working there. That works. So
We have a slide about it.
we have a slide about it?
Sure.
I think
Maybe.
we talked about that at a previous AD
We
meeting.
did talk about it previously, I know.
We're talking about it a while ago.
Yeah, it's just all these meetings and all these slides kind of tend to blur after a while. Unfortunately, there's so much. But yeah, for every year that they're absolutely, and can we hang on to them digitally? I don't think there's a problem holding on to them digitally. If you were to scan those and have digital copies, those should be fine. That should not be a problem. I'm a big fan of keeping things digitally. And we do even a lot of our records now here at the agency. We sign things digitally. We don't have paper forms anymore and files that we keep things in. So digitally works. And so the student opt-out forms, I don't know how long you keep those either myself.
For the year, because they have to fill out a new one the next year.
Yeah, for the year, according to Elise, they have to fill out another one next year. Awesome. Next slide, please. Let's keep this moving. I know we got a lot of slides. So I'm always available if you have any questions. I do appreciate the emails that have come in. And so there's my email address again. And you can always call. Calling, sometimes people get through too. And I do answer my phone. So, and like I said, nice and short and sweet for me today. So, but teachers, they do have to do a new ethics signature form. Yes, every year, Alicia. They have to have the training every year. And so someone once asked, someone asked me earlier this year, can we actually have them just take a test to show they know it? And there's nothing in the policy that says that can happen. It says they have to undergo the professional development every year. And so they have to go through the professional, and remember, things change. Our slide deck this year is different than last year's because we had some things happen last year. And so we beefed up some of those sections to call out these, make sure these things don't happen, right? Be aware of these things. And so we worked really hard over the summer to kind of beef that up, right? And so, so you might have more, especially if they've been there for many years, they might have a lot of forms on in your file, but it's mostly, like I said, just to protect you if there is something that does happen and there's an audit or something like that. And so, does giving the slides count? No. Sorry, this is professional learning, not professional sit and get and read. If you look through those slides, there's actually things where they're supposed to go and do some reading and bring some information back and actually engage in the process. So it's just not reading the slides, Natalie. You have to actually present professional learning. And that's on the LEA testing plan that you submit. You are saying that we will give them this professional learning. Not that you'll give them a slide deck. Right. The hybrid presentation where they do the import, they build modules and answer the questions, is that acceptable? It's If you look in the slides, you'll see a slide that actually says you may not delete anything from this presentation, but you may add to it. That's how I'm going to answer that question. Please make sure that all of that presentation is used. And if you want to add things to it about your school or about procedures at your school or within your LEA, that's fine. But please don't take away from that presentation that we have. And so the resources to go with the slide deck, to present with the slide deck, no, everything that's in the slide deck are the links for them to link to and go to. And so they're actually sites. We verified those before we uploaded it. And so it could be presented by school principals, Jeff. It could be presented by you guys as the assessment directors. You could have someone else that you designated, but it should be someone in an administrative role that presents these. Yeah, at minimum, the training does take about 90 minutes. I'd love to streamline it and still have it effective. And I agree, Kendra, that would be great. But the thing is that we keep getting more and more things that happen. We keep adding to it, unfortunately. I would love to find a way to make it streamlined and more effective. We do have very specific things that we need to cover in that training. And so it takes the time to do it on it. And since this is also one of the things because this is part of the code, right? This isn't something I can say, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I'm never gonna say, don't worry about it. This is required by code. So you have to do it. It's that simple. And we try to make sure that we cover everything that is required by the board to be in that training. And so we're just following what our leadership is asking us to do also. Does it have to be in one sitting? I don't think it does, but it does have to be completed before they administer any tests. Right? You can't get it half done and then have them go give a weed aid test. Right? The weed screener. Right?
Cadence is at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, cadence is beginning. So, they have to complete it before they can administer or proctor any tests. And this is everyone. I know we have some of our rural areas where people who are not licensed educators are helping proctor the tests. If they help in any way, they also have to go through the training. Right, so anyone that is helping proctor this test needs to go through this training. Great questions, everyone. We appreciate them. I'm happy to take any questions at any time in the future. And happy to help you out as best we can. Moving forward.
That makes them not my turn. I thought it was. Ready to go on mastering.
There was one more quick question for you, Scott.
Can they create a video of the slide deck and add it to their vector training? What's vector training? Is that like an online platform?
It is.
Yeah, I think it's like their beginning of the year. Teachers can go in and do like all their trainings at one time. Type of a thing.
It's their like required district training.
Yeah.
I'm not changing it.
And the thing with the vector, if you look at this, at the training, it involves people working together, going and reading some of these materials and then coming back and collaborating. And it doesn't sound like vector is an avenue where that would work. And so
I even put a comment in there saying we already gave Nebo permission to put it in vector training.
who did?
USBE.
Dave and Nebo. Oh, who at USBE gave permission?
And Karen was told no.
Yeah,
And
so
Karen was told no.
Yeah, I don't know who gave that permission, David. And it was, I don't think it was me. If it was me, it was a big mistake. I guess that personally, I've never used vector, so that would be I would have had that first knee-jerk reaction to it also. Because my initial reaction is no, this should be something that follows the way the training is laid out, and it doesn't sound like vector does that. Might not ever find out who. You can go to vector with a group.
We're doing this with vector.
Let's talk about this internally. We'll talk about it internally and get back with you guys on the AD memo for this one, okay? So, I think it sounds like I need to learn more about vector.
You can go to the next slide.
There we go.
I just wanted to review our RISE development process as we are starting into a lot of new development for our grade 9-10. So we start with our passage selection for ELA, then we go into our item development. All that item writing is done by Utah educators. It's input into our system. We have a content review again by Utah educators, and we have a fairness bias review by Utah educators, and then a parent review. So our Utah educators are the ones who are creating this assessment. There's a lot of miscommunication out there and a lot of ideas that it's all created at the state level, and it's not. We help facilitate that and we approve things, but all of the actual item writing and all those steps goes through multiple educator groups. Next. After those items are all developed, they're field tested with students, and then we do a rubric validation and a data review where we're really looking at like the data and how students responded and making sure that the item is providing us with good, reliable information that is telling us how students are doing and what their different skill levels are. Sometimes we have a standard setting when our standards have changed enough, which we did for ELA this year, and then items become operational. Next. Wanted to share some of the feedback that we got from teachers about this, the process and the things that they have learned. So I'm just going to give everybody a minute to read some of those comments and feedback from teachers. This is just a sampling of the comments. Overwhelmingly, the feedback is very positive, and the teachers have felt like that participating has informed their instruction, has made them better understand their standards, better understand how to assess students, and that it just is very valuable. So we just want to encourage you to have your teachers participate. They're going to come back to the classroom knowing and understanding how they can better prepare their students. Next. So these are our development lists, and I do have some of my content people that are going to specifically talk about for 9-10, but please share these. These can be for grades 3 through 10, and we would love to have additional representation from our districts and LEAs and charter schools that have maybe not sent people to any development workshops yet. Next.
I'll kind of piggyback on that last slide for a sec before we go into our high school educator recruitment. For the math listserv, as Teresa said, it's for grades 3 through 10. It is not a commitment when you sign up to do anything. All you're saying is I want to receive updated information about math assessment and opportunities that become available to participate in our development workshops. And teachers can then choose if they would like to participate by filling out a survey that Jared Wright and myself send when those opportunities come up. Go on to the next slide. And Nikki, are you talking about the links for the listservs?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like Teresa's taking care of that. Thank you. Okay. So Sam Tinky is sitting next to me. She and I are going to be talking about our upcoming RISE item writing workshops for high school. Specifically, we are going to be writing items to the courses that are listed on this slide. So the process right now is a little bit tentative, but we are planning on having the new math assessment and science assessment ready for spring of 2027 for high school. And that will be using Cambium assessment, CAI, for our RISE testing. Go on to the next slide, please. And we have a couple workshops. Here are the dates for the math ones. They are slightly different for science, so I'll speak to these for math. October 21st and 22nd, we are hosting our item writing for secondary math 1 and 2. And November 18th and 19th will be for secondary math 3. There is an interest survey highlighted here for educators to submit if they would like to participate in either of those workshops. I would say that they have to have experience teaching any of those 3 courses in high school in order to be eligible to come to that item writing. But it could be a current teacher or a math specialist or somebody who has taught recently in the classroom. Please share this with your educators in your LEA. We are really needing especially math 3 teachers right now. We are getting a final push here, and I need to get teachers' names to our vendor by the end of next week. So if you could share that, greatly appreciate it.
For the next slide, please. So the science assessments have some different dates. So we're splitting up the subjects because we have 4 content assessments that we're developing. And we have an extensive amount of educators that are needed to help develop these assessments. And so these workshops are split into 2. So the first one is October 20th to 22nd, and that's just going to be earth science and physics. So these educators are going to be coming to write those pieces. The interest survey is highlighted in yellow there as well. We very much need some more physics teachers. And I know that it is hard for high school educators to leave their classrooms, especially leaving them in the hands of a sub as well can be kind of nerve-wracking. But we encourage as many to sign the interest survey as possible. So then these assessments that we're developing, we're also hoping are going to alleviate some of the concerns that educators have brought forward, especially in the sciences, that it's not specifically Aspire Plus wasn't maybe assessing the standards they were teaching in their classroom. And so reaching out for these educators, we're hopefully going to be able to address those concerns with the new RISE assessment, where we're specifically assessing those standards that you would be teaching within your classroom. So physics for this one, we still need a good amount of physics educators to come in. And again, just like math, we do require previous education, like teaching of those physics standards, but current teaching, if you're the STEM specialist for the district or for your school, or things like that, as long as you've had previous classroom experience teaching these seed standards, you could be eligible to come in for that workshop. And let's go to the next one. So the next workshop's in November. It is also 3 days. Yes, so science are 3 days. We're developing a lot of clusters for science. And these are longer periods of time because there's not as much that we can, we're basically writing an assessment from scratch because it will assess differently than the UA Plus did, and assess specific standards within those seed standards that are taught in the classroom. So there's going to be a lot more work. It's fun work, not scary work, but the next workshop is November 18th to the 20th, and this will specifically be for educators that are in biology and chemistry. Again, emphasize your chemistry educators to please fill in this interest survey, as we still need more chemistry educators. We will still take names for the bio educators if you are interested. Even once our participant list fills, we do have an alternate list because there are normally people on that participant list that might have something come up and can't attend. So we still need especially chemistry educators for this one in November. And there is a different form for this one for biology and chemistry. It's highlighted in yellow. The survey will close on September 4th. So if you can send these to your science educators. This one's September 4th. The previous one is August 27th, I believe. We're sending this directly to our teachers. So it's being sent through our listserv emails that were shared a few slides previously. Those listserv subscriptions basically just subscribe your educators or you to getting any kind of communication that comes from the development team. So these type of things will be contained in those emails that go out. So we send them to the listservs and send them out and disseminate that way. But there are these links here that are in the 80 slides. And then I don't think there are anywhere else though. Yeah, we share them and they're just in the slides here and then sent out on our listservs.
And then Tess had a question about additional workshops in the winter and or spring. So as far as item writing itself, that is not set yet. I don't think we'll have any more this year for item writing, but we will have review committees for content and rubric validation and data review coming up in a year and in the next year as well. So there will be more workshops coming.
These ones are specifically item writing as we are at the beginning of putting this assessment together. But the other types of workshops will be coming swiftly as well.
Now it's mine.
Oh my gosh, now it's my turn.
Hold on really fast. There is a flyer attached for, along with the email that you got with the AD slides, for 9-10 recruitment specifically for math, science, and ELA to be added to the listservs. And then next week in the AD memo, I will have my specialists include the links to the actual forms to sign up for the item workshops that are this October and November, that you can share those out with teachers. So they would really need to fill out both. One is the listserv, so then they get future workshop emails. And then one is for the actual item writing workshops in October and November for math and science.
And Teresa, can we add, you didn't hear from ELA, me, for 9-10 because there's not as much urgency for that development. We will start recruiting in the later fall, since those workshops aren't till the winter. So the link was still on that first slide though, so you can have educators sign up to be on that listserv. And again, looking at the chat, we can't just blast out emails to all educators because of communication and local control policy. We have to have educators actually sign up to be contacted, otherwise we can't. So there are hoops to jump through always.
Thanks, ma'am.
All right, now it's my turn, so we can go to the next slide. Alrighty, so this has escaped some people knowing about our new teacher email field. We are collecting teacher emails from LEAs via UTREX submission now. There is a new field that's been added to the course master record. So you can submit teacher work emails to us that we can then use to create accounts in Utah Aspire Plus right now and Acadience. If you do not use this field, we will do as we have done before and use the Cactus ID email of your teachers. You can still, if your SIS people have not added this field in yet, it is not too late. You can still add it in now, and then just once we start receiving teacher email addresses from your ELA via UTREX, their teacher accounts will just update in ALO to their work email address. I have a link to the UTREX specifications document on this slide. It tells you exactly, it has the SIF mapping, it has all the details your SIS person will need to know to add this field. It starts on page 146. Next slide.
Maureen, I would just add that having those teacher emails change over is not going to impact student data.
Nope.
It will not impact classes. It
Nope.
will have no impact upon anything other than the teacher will have to reset their password.
Yep.
Because it will be a new email.
It will just update their already existing account and nothing will be affected. Nothing else will be affected. We've seen it happen already. It worked last year, so I do not anticipate any changes to that. Alrighty, Acadience updates. So we ran into a little speed bump in your student information loading into ALO for the first of the year here. And we've been having, hang on, I'm gonna ask for questions about Acadience at the end of this slide. So I know there's gonna be a lot. So you can expect, they have streamlined their process. So now you can pretty much expect to see your students on the second day of school, but maybe not first thing in the morning. ALO has to do an extra import process. They try to catch it in the morning. So if they might have to run a little update in the morning, so you'll see students a little later in the day on your second day is what we are seeing now. There was a little bit more of a delay, say last week, but we're working on it. We know class names are all just generic, no teacher information on them. It is a pain. It's a pain for me. It's a pain for Teresa. It's across the world a pain that our teacher names are terrible, are just generic. You can't tell anyone apart. We have a quick fix that's in the works right now that will attach teacher cactus ID to that class name. So you'll see class name, teacher cactus ID. Our developers are working on getting name added to that. So you'll probably see the class name, the teacher cactus ID, and then the teacher name. And they are working on that. We should possibly see that by your middle of the year testing window. Speaking of testing windows, until you set them in ALO, you will not see any student data flow in. If you don't have your testing window set, no students are coming in to your school. LEA, well, they might sit at the LEA. No, I don't even think so. You
Nope.
just aren't gonna see them
Nothing.
at all. All right, bring it.
Why no longer
Katie's
SSID for students?
Oh, so.
Yeah.
There was another little hiccup with student information and you cannot search students by their SSID right now. We're working on getting that fixed too. It's also a pain for me. It's also a pain for Teresa. It's a pain for Dallas. It's another pain across the world. That we just have to get a little something remapped and we just discussed it yesterday. Hopefully that fix will be in soon too. ALO has to make that.
Okay, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
move
come
over
on
to
over.
there, the questions we have talked about. Updating class names, so yes.
Yes.
Do you wanna just
Yeah, I
reiterate
can-
that? Updating class names.
The class names will just update via our upload and I'm crossing fingers end of next week. You'll be seeing better class names.
Yeah. And I will add for the SSID for students, we are currently working with ALO to get that fixed. So currently the field that is showing is the school ID and not the state ID. And we have requested and are
Yes.
working on having the state student ID appear in both fields. So that will be the field that it shows for the student for their ID. And then students will be searchable by the ID number.
Yes, but you can search them by first name, last name, and their school student number.
Had different issues with the upload. That would be you.
Email full. If you're a partial teacher email, that is an interesting and new dilemma. Go ahead and email me about the partial teacher emails. So and with your teacher's information, so I can look into that. That's a new one.
ADM, no students in ADM.
Oh, I will check, our ALO people also do ADM. I will check with them to see why students aren't flowing in there. Everyone looks good in Utrecht, so maybe they have to restart something.
And then how long does it take for new students to show up in ALO?
A new student, if you have had your first big upload of students, your students are in ALO right now, be 24 to 48 hours for a new student to show up. Standard for every assessment.
And yes, if a teacher does not have a Cactus ID, they will not have kids in ALO. So you have to make sure.
That is also true of every assessment and it will cause, if you have a teacher without a Cactus ID, I don't know, maybe you have a placeholder in your SIS for that. Classes without teacher Cactus IDs will have a fatal Utrecht error and they won't go anywhere.
Third day of school, they don't see students who should be contacted about that rostering.
That's me. If you're on your third day of school and you don't see anybody, you'll probably see them today, but I will double check that ALO puts you at the top of the list.
If the current school year is not showing an Acadians, then they must not have gotten rolled over.
Yeah, also send me an email about that. If you aren't seeing current school year, then something
weird.
has gone very strangely. What LEA are you that is not showing the current school year?
Savannah Broadbent.
Excelsior. I am gonna look into that right now. Well, when I'm done talking.
So it looks like there's a tiebreaker issue. Students drop out even though they've been attending our school and another school has them at their school.
If a student has transferred from your school to another school, or if they are dually enrolled, then they might, if their new LEA started after yours, you might have seen them for a little bit and then they drop off. And if you want me to check out those students, send me their SSIDs and I'll look it up for you.
Hal wants to know if there is initial workloads could be a week earlier.
That is not my decision and or anything I have control over. You can talk to Cliff Deline. He's the Utrex project manager. We are set up that no student is active until they reach their first day of school, then first day of classes. And you can't pull inactive students into an assessment platform. So.
And just a reminder about the recommendation. So it's not a rule, but a recommendation from Acadian's learning is that you don't assess students the first week of school. Like you give students time to be in school. So having it close to the beginning of the school year, while we understand, and I understand there are some people that have testing teams and things like that, but just a recommendation is that you're not assessing students the very first week of school. So then that should give a little bit of a cushion time with rostering to happen before you start assessing.
I think the big issue is kindergarten. A lot of LEAs are having those first 5 days of school that they're allowed to use for kindergarten assessments. And they're now Acadian's required, so. A couple of people have said they've changed their class names to teacher names and it will not be an issue with the rollout of the new class names.
If you have changed them in your SIS, no, we'll still just keep getting them. It'll have the class name with your teacher name, with the cactus ID on the end of it. And then when we add the other field, then it will be your class name plus the teacher cactus ID plus your name. You'll have your teacher's ID name all over that class.
Yeah, so that would be the only impact is that it would
You'll
like
have double teacher name.
duplicate the teacher names.
Yeah.
But we won't have the teacher name most likely till the middle of the year window. So if you're like, we'd like to have that fixed at this point, if you change the class names in your SIS system to the teacher names, that's what's going to appear in ALO. So whatever your class name is in your SIS system.
If you are a small LEA or charter, that's not a big deal for you to just change your class names. I know our larger, that is a big deal and you have a lot of classes. And if you need to swap teachers in and out of classes, then you would have to change the teacher name on the class name. So we're working on it. Bear with us.
So the questions are, what is the point of kindergarten extra days then?
Yeah.
And my kindergarten students have not showed up yet.
Once again, if you have if you say you have a whole grade of students not showing up, please email me. I will check and see if it's a problem with your Utrex submission or something with the teacher. I'm happy to check.
For PEEP, the windows set for the PEEP assessment are different than the state windows set by the State Board of Education for Acadians. And the PEEP system, you can just do it on paper. It doesn't require the same level of rostering. But anyway, those are the windows that have been set by the State Board of Education. So if you would like that change, then that would be something that would have to go to them. So we're just implementing what our board rule states.
And I might add, I don't do anything with PEEP rostering. Dallas Brooks. I'll say that's loud. PEEP is Dallas Brooks. One thing I don't.
Why does it take so long to get the teacher name in place?
Well, it's sort of a long story. You can sit down and I'll tell it to you if you like. It just has to do with where teacher name comes from. We can add anything to a class name that's from that course master record, easy peasy. It goes straight in. We have to pull a teacher name from somewhere else. And now that school has started, our developers are very afraid of breaking something by adding that teacher name. They are using an abundance of caution, adding that teacher name, so it doesn't break student rostering. Which has happened, which can happen. We do try very hard not to break student rostering. These things can have big unintended consequences.
Yes, and again, the assessment windows are set by our state board through board rule. And so if that does need to change, then that would be something, I don't know, what exactly is the process to bring that?
Yeah, so we would have to go to our the board to recommend a change to that. So I think looking at and I don't want to seem insensitive to large districts or people trying to test and understand the issue with assessing. I'm just saying that Acadience their recommendation is not to test the first week of school. So it's not that you cannot test the first week of school. We can talk with Cliff about what that looks like rostering wise in the future for students to be able to be there for you to administer assessments. And then we can anticipate if there are issues. The concern that I would have with widening that testing window is if you have students that tested the first week of school versus it's already a 6 or 8 week long window, depending on when you start school. And so if you have students that are being assessed that first week of the window versus students that are being assessed the last week of the window and comparability within your schools and LEAs, already it's a pretty large window, and then that might impact when they're being assessed at the end of the window as well, how many days they had of instruction between assessments. So I think it's something that if there's concerns about people meeting the current window ending the end of September, reach out please to Teresa or Dallas or Jared about what concerns you might have, and then see if we can come up with some solutions. But there is an ability to adjust those windows. We would have to take that to our state school board and have reasons for why we would want to adjust those.
I might also add that this delay was unexpected by us. We didn't realize what happens is that our data flows in to ALO, and then ALO has to do an extra step the very first thing in the year. They didn't realize it. We didn't know because they didn't realize it, so they didn't tell us. It was very unexpected, and we are already talking with ALO about how to streamline this process for the beginning of the next school year. So you should not see next school year anyone having to wait until the third day of school unless you are having Utrex issues. We can't plan on that, but we are already working on smoothing this out for next school year, and it should go much quicker and much better.
I will just add that we've definitely been in discussions with them about making sure that we have start dates for everybody, and also making sure that your guys' testing windows are set. So Acadience has had to go in and set a lot of testing windows in order to actually start the rostering. So we're gonna be starting a lot sooner and collecting information around like when your actual start date is, and making sure that those testing windows are all set and ready to go, so that you should be able to see students the second day of school, as long as there's no Utrex errors. Other than those LEAs who started earlier, whose students had changed LEAs. So if they're rostered at a different LEA last year, they could still be in the system and it won't release them until that LEA starts. For kindergarten students, that won't be an issue because they're all brand new rostered for the first time. And unless maybe they went to preschool and are rostered somewhere with preschool, but it shouldn't impact it still.
Preschool students don't make it into ALO.
I was gonna say, because they're not in ALO. So it shouldn't be an issue with kindergarten students, but you should we'll still have that same issue potentially next year with students who were transferring LEAs and changing. Let's see if there's any.
it's never a good idea to plan on a student being rostered for an assessment on their first day of class. It can happen, and it's great when it does, but it is not something you should ever count on.
And then, David, thank you for your note. We'll make sure we get slide numbers on there again next year or next. Yeah, this on the slides, just numbers on the slides so that they can follow along with the numbers. So Hal, unfortunately, so last year we had a totally different rostering process than we do this year. Last year was a quick fix because things did not work the way we anticipated and we're not ready for the actual rostering that we had hoped. And so we put a quick fix into place, which then had its own challenges. And then this year is the rostering that we're going to be using with Acadians, with ALO moving forward. And so this is also a little bit, because whenever you have a brand new rostering, like there are bugs and kinks to work through and things that you maybe didn't realize were gonna happen that do. And that's what we're currently working through. So moving forward for next year, it should be very smooth because we will already have all the fixes in place and have streamlined the process so that we can just start school. And really, it won't be until the second day of school unless something changes with our UTREC submissions and when that data starts getting collected and rostering starts happening. And then if you have questions about Acadians and the maze assessment, please reach out to Dallas Burke. She'll be talking in just a little bit about Acadians and can answer any of your questions as far as like the assessment side. The rostering side is Mari. And that's it.
All right, let's hurry up and move to the next slide. All right, so this is just a little reminder. This is our UTREC student data flow. This is how your student information gets to assessment vendors. And it all starts out in your SIS. Any student information we have in an assessment vendor is the student information that you have in your SIS. Our information is only as good as your information. So you submit that as student data to us, UTREC, our database, and we perform checks on the validity of the data. And that is where your UTREC errors come from, our checks. You can check your UTREC errors and check your student UTREC information in Data Gateway. There's a link to Data Gateway on this slide. That is where you look at your UTREC. You can look at your fatal errors. You can look at your examine file. You can just look up your students to make sure everything's good. You can look up SCRAM records. You can look at all sorts of assessment reports in the Data Gateway. Now, once your student information has passed through the validations into UTREC, we move it along to assessment vendors, and then our rostering process happens there in between UTREC and our assessment vendors. Next slide. All right, when you are sharing student data with us here at USBE, with assessment vendors, with a help desk, with anybody, please only give us an SSID or an LEA student number. You can tell us what school they're enrolled in. You can tell us their teacher name, but please, that is the only information we need. We can look up everything we need to know with an SSID. You don't have to, please don't send us their names, anything that would identify what gender they are, any accommodations they're having, their medical records, their parents' names. We see a lot of stuff in email chains. So please, just SSID is all we need. Next slide. All right, so if you do need to send us more information, sometimes we do need to know more information about a student, you can do it via Move It. And if you do not have, if you are an AD and you don't have a Move It account, you can contact Emily Ng and she will help set you up with one.
I have started sending out emails to ADs, making sure we have access to Move It set up. On that same note, I'm also including, asking you guys to confirm everybody on our AD list. So if you haven't got that email, it is coming, but yeah, I'm sure you have access to it.
Next slide. All right, so how can you check your UTrex data? Next slide. That would be in the data gateway. Specifically on the UTrex overview page is where you can see your fatal errors and your examine file. Your examine file just shows you all the information that you have sent us in spreadsheet form. It's very convenient. And those level 1 fatals, those are gonna be the errors that keep students from rostering. Also, we have just started rostering students into Utah Compose, and if you need to see this year's data for Utah Compose, right there to the right of your fatal errors is the reset button for your Utah Compose extract. You need to hit that in order to get current school year information into Utah Compose. And just to know, I hit that button for a couple of LEAs just to start the rostering process off. And I had to hit reset twice. I hit reset the first time and then it just went back to saying I needed to reset an extract. I reset it the second time and it's done. So you might need to hit the button twice. Next slide. All right, so what do our data transfers look like? Next slide. We have 4 basic ways that students will roster for assessment. We have assessment rostering based on grade. That's Utah Aspire Plus and ACT. If you're a 9th and 10th grader, you roster for Utah Aspire Plus. If you're an 11th grader, you roster for ACT. We have course-based assessments, RISE and Acadience, and our new DLI assessment stamp. You have to be enrolled in the correct grade and in the correct courses to roster for course-based assessments. To roster for DLM, our dynamic learning maps, these are for our 1% students. You need to have 1% marked on your SCRAM record to roster for DLM. And WIDA, you have to take the WIDA access assessment, a student needs to be marked as an EL student correctly in your SIS.
Can I clarify? It says WIDA there, it should specifically be access.
Access, yes, it
We
should be.
did not roster for screener
Nope.
at all.
And I should have added, that's an old one. It should say access on there. It's meant to say access on there. Next slide. All right, course-based assessments. To be rostered for a course-based assessment, you have to be at a school in the correct grade, and you have to be in a course with the correct core code assigned to it. We have all of the core codes listed. Well, that's supposed to be a link at the bottom, but it doesn't seem to be a link. If you go to that address, you'll find our core codes for every assessment. And you have to be without, the student has to be without UTrex errors. Next slide. All right, so core code priority. If you have a student, for instance, this student is enrolled in a homeroom class, reading, math, science. If you look at the core codes assigned, homeroom 4 and reading 4 are going to roster for RISE tests. But the reading class has a core code that's higher on this list. That's going to be the class the student rosters for. Some core codes will roster a student for every subject. Yes, question?
Yeah, those core codes are listed in SIS or we enter them in SIS?
You enter them in your SIS. When you create a course in your SIS, you give it a name, you add the teacher, you give it a core code, and then you send it to us. We go by what you send to us. So the highlighted core codes in these lists are core codes that will roster you for every subject. Some will roster you for language arts, math, science if you're in grade 4 through 8, and writing. Only for 5th and 8th graders. All right, next slide. So if you have 3rd through 6th graders and you are using a rotation schedule, there are core codes you can use for your homeroom classes that won't roster for assessment at all. They'll roster individually for math, they'll roster for reading, they'll roster for science. These homeroom core codes will not roster assessment. If you choose to use the other core codes, like we saw on the last slide, These are gonna roster you for every subject. So just be aware of that. We have a lot of people that can't figure out why a kid that only takes math from them is rostered for language, arts, and science. It's because they're using one of these core codes, which are just general and are gonna roster you for everything. Next slide. All right, our grade-based assessments. To be rostered for these, you just have to be in the right school and be without UTREX errors. We do give priority to brick and mortar school over an online school and schools that are marked school of record. But these are easy ones. If you're a 9th and 10th grader, you're in Utah Spark Plus. If you're 11th grader, you're an ACT and not a 1% student. All right, next slide. Okay. LEAs are required to provide an opportunity for private homeschool Utah Fits All scholarship students to participate in state assessments if they request it. You don't have to go out and advertise that you will test private school students and homeschool students, but if they request it, you are required to oblige them. You should be very careful who you release the results of these tests to. There are rules about it, and they are in the rostering guide, which should be linked at the bottom, but that is not the right one. This special rostering is not required if a student you're testing is anywhere in UTREX. So if you can find that student somewhere in this school year in Data Gateway, you don't have to do any of the special rostering for them. You should be able to test them without any trouble at all, without having to do anything special. Next slide. All right, if you see a student not rostered, here's the top things to check. Fatal UTREX error. It's the #1 reason why a student doesn't roster for assessment. If they have a fatal UTREX error, they do not roster, 100%. It can take up to 48 hours for a student to roster that is new, just depending on the timing of our data pulls. Student record changes can cause students to drop from rostering for a day or two. Course changes, term changes, if they change their address in their student record, if you change their date of birth in their student record, if you change their phone number in their student record, any number of things can cause them just to drop off rostering for a day, they come right back. Also, core codes. You need to make sure a student is in the correct class in order to roster them for assessment. Next slide. I'm done, that's it. We have the core code list, student rostering manual, the manual for rostering private and Utah Fits All and homeschool students. If you have any questions about any of this, next slide. My email is right here for you. Usually at this time of year, email is definitely a preference because I'm already talking to someone on the phone or emailing someone, right? So that's it for me.
Maureen? Okay,
Questions here.
Oh, thank God.
and no more questions.
Just
We still have a lot to cover actually.
I can go quick and take a break maybe.
Let's do WIDA and then the break.
All right, okay, here we go. So WIDA, email address, I just want to give a little heads up. Turns out that my computer is still haunted and possessed. So it's with IT. I apologize if you've been emailing me. Like 5 hours later, I will send and reply to emails, but 5 hours later, I'll find them still sitting in drafts or outboxes. So I'm just gonna apologize now if my communication seems off and wonky. I'm doing my best. So we're hoping that it's with IT right now, getting fixed. So everyone just say a prayer for Megan's computer. All right, so next. We have been asked to share parent resources. You will be getting a lot of one-pagers about this, but I just wanted to put this out there since WIDA screening and identification for EL services are happening. So there are lots and lots of parent resources on the WIDA website. I've linked them all here. A lot of these are in multiple languages. So go in and take a look and see, you know, what can we share with our parents to help inform them more about the assessments that their students are taking. And I think one other one is as we, that I want to point out is in the other section for federal law and policy. We've seen a lot of changes happening nationally, but laws are still the laws. So until laws are actually changed at a federal level, we do still need to make sure that we are following the laws. So there's some good reminders of the laws right there. But again, parent resources, things that can be shared to help inform parents. Okay, next. All right, we do have trainings that are hosted by USBE and WIDA. We have understanding alternate access score reports coming up really soon. Please sign up for that as soon as possible. And then the other ones, we do have 3 days, 2 workshops that are going to be in person here, I believe in Basement West. Those are going to be in October, so please sign up. Those do have a maximum, I believe, of like 40 participants. So WIDA will be here leading those trainings. You can sign up for those in Midas. So again, those are hosted by WIDA and USBE in a partnership. I do see in a question, while we have the experts here, does a letter need to go out for the screeners or only the yearly WIDA assessment? So the process for screeners is when a student enrolls in a school, they need to complete the home language survey. That home language survey is available. It's linked on our WIDA tab in assessments, or it's available under the forms tab on the Title III website, USBE's websites. And on that home language survey, you do need to, whether it's going to be electronic, you're putting your own letterhead on it. It does need to have the exact same questions and verbiage on it that we have posted. That is notification to the parents that how they answer those questions, the students could be screened. But you, again, per federal law, you don't need permission to screen the student at all. It's notification because it's directly tied to the student's civil rights. Once you screen the student, if they qualify for services, you have to send the letter home. And so that's after the student's screened, or if they are already identified, then the annual, again, letter of EL status, right? The annual notification letter, again, available through the forms tab on Title III website or the WIDA tab under assessments. Those do need to be sent home, okay? So, and then again, for access, no, you don't need to notify parents. They'll know through the annual notification that the student will have the yearly access for growth and proficiency. Again, you don't need parent permission. I can walk you through any of those tricky conversations if parents are really adamant about opting out, as it is on the exclusion form, the parental opt-out exclusion form. So we do have guidance that we updated on our WIDA tab. So hopefully that can help walk you through some of the processes as well. And as a new AD, what WIDA trainings do you suggest we take first? I can walk you through any and all the trainings. One of the biggest ones would be, we just did a new AD screener training that is posted. It was recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. I believe I have it linked on one of these slides that will be coming up, but it is there. And then, of course, any training for test administration of any test that you need to take. But you are always welcome to schedule a meeting with me and I can give you the WIDA crash course. I have new EL students from other Utah districts who did not come with the most recent year scores in their physical cumulative files. Is there any way to access their 25 scores online? Absolutely. All of the 24-25 access reports were loaded into the data gateway in July of this summer. So that was one of the asks that all of our assessment directors had several years ago. And so those have been loaded sooner. Those are all available. So if a student does have any access records, it'll be there. You can look it up. I've been getting reports that every now and then the downloading the entire file for a school or a district has had errors, but you can go in and look individual students up and see their assessment records that way as well. All right, here we go. I thought I was gonna be fast. Y'all are asking lots of questions today. I like it. Okay. Okay, I have gotten some emails already this year saying, we're trying to test students and nothing's working. You gotta update all the technology every year. So whoever your technology coordinators are, please make sure that they have access to the WIDA AMS, that's our DRC platform. So they can have a technology coordinator account that you can create for them. And then they'll have access to all the technology manuals and downloads so you can update your Insight Secure browsers for all the students and get things going. So that all started to be available and communicated out at the end of June. This next slide will also be updates about technology. Again, please share this with your technology coordinators. One of the biggest things, and this is probably going to affect a lot of assessments, is that Chromebooks, yay, you no longer have to have like, you know, some kind of managing software like Enterprise or something. It doesn't have to be in kiosk mode anymore. So yay, that's really great. So there's new directions and everything about how to install the secure browsers for WIDA's Insight on Chromebooks, which I know most of you all use. So make sure that your technology coordinators know about that big change, because I'm sure it's going to affect downloading all the different secure browsers for all the different assessments. So how do you know what the org unit code is? That is available in WIDA AMS, and your technology coordinators will know where to access it once they go through the technology coordinator manual that's available in WIDA AMS. Or you can always just call their help desk. They're super helpful. They'll probably give it to you just super quick. Next. All right, let's get into screening. Screening could begin all the way back on July 1st. So I saw earlier in the chat, well, why do we get these extra days for kindergarten? If you have a student that needs to be screened potentially for EL services, you could start screening them during those extra days. So part of those extra days, use them if you need to screen them for EL services. But again, make sure that any test administrators, people giving those tests, take those tests only for the test they'll administer, okay? Screener trainings were updated July 1st as well. Access trainings are not going to be updated till September 1st, but all screener trainings have been updated. Please remember, as you screen students and you identify them as EL or not, you still need to update your SIS to indicate that the student was screened and whether they qualified for language services or not. And then if you need any paper screeners, please reach out to me. We've really clarified our guidance on who should be using paper screeners. It really is only for students that have really specific needs. So it's students with disabilities that need certain accommodations, but they don't necessarily qualify for alternate testing. So they don't qualify under the alternate accommodations and accessibility criteria and guidelines, or if the student has little to no technology experience. A lot of times in the past, people just assumed all newcomers needed paper. It's not fair to assume that newcomers don't have technology experience. So conversations do need to be taking place. What's going to be best for that student? But most of the time, online will be appropriate. A lot of the lower grades, they are going to still be paper-based. And all of those materials are going to be available for free download. So like kindergarten screener, the writing portions for the lower grades, right? Alternate screener, those things are available in the secure portal for free. Again, alternate entrance criteria, okay? Students that get a 5 or higher are considered proficient. If they get lower than a 5, then they qualify for services. That goes for all screeners, and that is now including the alternate screener. Again, students that have the most significant cognitive disabilities, and they meet the criteria outlined in the alternate assessment participation guidelines linked here. Those students can be given the alternate screener, okay? Those are one-on-one paper. Again, so these are just some reminders for alternate screener, where you can download everything, because this one is new for this year. I feel like I've been like kind of screaming about this in AD memos and meetings since last May. So hopefully this isn't too new and it's on repeat for you all. If you do have questions about alternate screener, reach out to Tracy Gooley, my WIDA partner in crime. All right, let's get into access. We're gonna start, I know it's like 2 days into school for some of us. And we're already talking about access, but guess what? There's trainings that are free that WIDA will be hosting. So as asked earlier, if you just want to get to know the assessments a little better, these are great free webinars just hosted by WIDA that you can attend just to learn more about it. So these are the dates. There's little, the fine print of where you can access the links to the Zoom meetings, and if you can't make it, where the recordings will be and all that good stuff. So here's some upcoming access webinars. Kindergarten access, remember there was a change. So kindergarten access was revised last year. So all of the trainings and everything, those ones are going to be a little delayed. Those will be the only ones delayed. Those will be live at the end of September. So again, remind that anyone that is giving all kindergarten access, that they will need to wait to do the trainings September 29th or later. Would the 9th and 11th training be similar? We are new charter LEA, so wondering which one to attend. Can you go back? Cool. So they're going to be a little different. So the September 9th training is going to be just a quick introduction to people that will be new to administering the test. So if you can find that you will be administering, it will probably be a good one. The one on the 11th is if you oversee the whole thing for your LEA or district. So how to kind of be in charge and coordinate for multiple schools or multiple test administrators. So slightly different approaches to knowing what, basically getting to know the systems for giving access. So yeah, I'd say if you're both, go to both. Yeah. Okay, we're jumping. Yep. Okay, so WIDA access this year is going to be, we're gonna see the revised test. So this will be an operational field test this year. Nothing on your end is going to be changing, and nothing for the students will be changing, and you will still get a score report at the end. There will be some updates though to some of the trainings because, you know, things change every year. As we get closer to score reports, we will give you concordance tables and give you guidance on everything. And then there's gonna be standard setting next summer. And we actually already have some Utah educators that will be participating in that, which is exciting. So nothing on your end or students' end, except for maybe some of the TA trainings, which I have given you updates on this next slide. Unfortunately, in the past, you were able to do like one training that covered a bunch of the different assessments, and now they're being separated out. So this kind of walks you through those changes. There's a lot on here, so just, you have the slides, read it, make sure that you're aware of the changes, because again, you have to take the trainings for the tests you will administer. All right. And then our contact information. I would say email me, but let's hope that my responses actually go to someone. So again, I apologize if things seem a little delayed. But there's the links to our WIDA website for both hosted on USBE and WIDA. We have updated all of those websites, so please go and take a look at them because everything's been updated and refreshed, and even all the links and things that you can go to, again, updated. I'm thinking that's it. And I think you all get some breaks. Nope, I had a question.
There's a question.
Sorry, said it too fast. Oh, here we go. We had some questions about when parents are registering their students in our SIS. I'd like to create a how-to reference sheet on how to register for all students' parents, but especially those EL kiddos. Does anyone have anything like this? You can contact me, or hopefully some people in the chat can share what they have with Nikki. But if you have online systems, I know there's a lot of LEAs that do all registering online. Hopefully you have it available in multiple languages. So when parents are completing certain things like the home language survey, they understand what they're filling out and why. And if there's anyone, if you have registrars or people or secretaries that are helping, just ensuring that if parents need something translated, that you guys have those resources available to translate what they need. For the kindergarten screener, do we look at the oral language score to determine if they earn the score for services? Okay, so that one's a great question. This is specific, and this is on our website and in our ID and placement guidance. Kindergarten students in the first semester only do the listening and speaking because we don't expect them to read and write quite yet. So you will qualify them for services only on that oral composite score. So you do not have to go back and give the reading and writing later on in the year. If a student that is in kindergarten enrolls in the second semester, then you do need to give all 4 domains: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Because we are so small, we really don't have translation other than Google Translate available. You'll probably, a lot of our resources are already available in multiple languages. So check out again what we have available online, and then those parent resources as well. A lot of those on that first slide are in multiple languages. But again, this is by law. You do have to be able to have things translated, and parents need to be able to understand what it is that they're really filling out. We don't ever want parents to say, I didn't understand what I was doing, right? So I think there are other options, and you can reach out to other LEAs to see what they use. But we do have a ton of stuff already translated. So reach out to me though, and I can see what I can do to help as well.
Okay, thanks friends for accommodating me to, I have a child with an orthodontist appointment and Scott doesn't want to present my slides, so they had to move. So Avant is our vendor for the new DLI test. We'll go to the next slide. For DLI, the test is now called the STAMP test. STAMP stands for Standards-Based Measurement of Proficiency Assessment. It does assess all 4 of those components, just like Apple did. However, most grades are only going to take 2 of those 4 components. I believe it's only grade 9 that will end up taking all 4. We will be having a training for this administration in the end of September. If you are a school who administers the DLI assessment, I would strongly encourage you to sign up for that MIDAS course. If you are an assessment director and you're sitting there thinking, awesome, I hope my foreign language people go, maybe connect with them to make sure. Because the switch of vendors has come as a surprise to many people. I'm still getting questions about Apple administration, and that's no longer a thing. So make sure that this is being communicated to the appropriate parties. I've included the Avant Utah website here at the bottom if you want to take time to kind of familiarize yourself with what's there. But there will be a training, and then our window of availability will open in October and go through the middle of December. For RISE, I'm not going to take a lot of time on these slides because you will become my captive audience at my training next week. But remember that with our types of training, with the types of tests, the training test is not a content test. And we need to remember to also get that messaging down to our teachers who want to use it to prep students for RISE, and that's not what its purpose is. It is for functionality of the system. But I will provide way more information on all 4 of these test types at the training that happens next week. So stay tuned for that. When it comes to the test itself, just remember that there are certain grades that take certain tests. Okay, is the training only recommended for admin or teachers as well? Christine, anybody is welcome to come, but I always start with the LEA level because it's the LEA level responsibility to then train the other users. So if teachers want to attend, they are absolutely welcome to, but when you look at the user interface itself, same with DLI. Everything I do will be from the LEA user perspective. And then you can determine at the LEA level what needs to then trickle down to your admin or your teacher level. Will the seal of biliteracy requirements be updated to match STAMP? Brian, that's a great question for Carl Bowman.
We can reach out, Brian, because I don't think it will be something that people will have lots of questions about. So
Yeah.
let us reach out to Carl.
And Carl's over seal of biliteracy completely.
Right.
So he will have that, he can for sure answer that question for you. The next slide is just the RISE testing dates, the windows for the year. The only one that I wanted to draw attention to here is that there will be writing and then some new ELA reading benchmarks, as well as the interims. Those will be available to you on November 4th. Okay, so just kind of put that date in the back of your brain. That's when those things will become available to you. All of this though is also included in the AD resource guide that's been on the website since January. I know, it's been available for a while. On the portal, if you are not currently receiving the updates, or if you're a new assessment director, I would strongly encourage you to go to the RISE portal and click just that little bottom section there that says to just subscribe, because anytime there's a change or an update made to like a TAM, or if something is down in the system or not working appropriately, a message will go out like through an automated server and you can sign up for those. Okay. Just as a reminder, it is with a new school year, the first time that you log into RISE, it is going to have you update your password. So if you are new for RISE or even just new this year, when you click login and it has you reset that, just remember that that's actually a thing. It happens to everybody. It did not forget who you were, but you do have to reset your password. The other thing you want to be aware of is the account cleanup, because teachers who are no longer associated with your LEA actually need to have their accounts removed, because for many of them,
they are working now with other LEAs and the LEA is trying to add them as a user and they can't because they're still assigned to you. So this is a great time to go through and clean up those accounts. And then just if you are creating a new teacher account, those are, they have like a 15-minute window of availability when you create that they have to go and click a little validation email. So just kind of be aware of that. Or they just have to go through and reset their password if they don't make that 15-minute window, okay? If at any time there are email issues, like a teacher has a change of email with a change of name, or there's a typo, that actually needs to be addressed with the RISE help desk. I cannot help you with that. The only thing that I can help you with in this respect is if you have reached out to a previous LEA to have them release a cactus and they're not responding as quickly as you would like, I can for sure go in and help you with that. But if a teacher gets married and has a name change and so their email changed, I cannot help you with that. You need to go through the RISE help desk. Okay, is there an easy way that we can see who has accounts? Yes, Jeff, if you log in and go to your users, you'll just go to manage user accounts. It will show you everyone that has them for your schools. And you can then also sort them by what level of access or like what role they've been assigned through the system. If you have logged into Tide, you will notice that it had itself a facelift over the summer. The functionality is nearly identical to what we have experienced in the past, but it does look very different. So that's also why there's been a delay in getting the RISE Tide user guide, is we are updating all of those screenshots with Cambium currently to better match what you will then see. But as long as you follow the wording, that will still be the same. It's just the pictures that are going to look a little bit different. If when you're logged in, you are running into any issues with filling out like accommodation forms or updating accommodation settings for a student, go clear your cache because your computer might be trying to run on what was previously visible in RISE. And then of course the training, where I will answer all of your lovely individualized questions. Come sit with me next week. It's going to be the greatest 2 hours of your life. I guarantee it. We have a good time. I'm very entertaining. So stay tuned for that. I am very firm but friendly. And then we need to skip down to Aspire, which is past Tracy's DLM slides. Know that spring 2026, we've gone over this before, but this is a firm but friendly reminder. The spring 2026 will be its last test administration. Okay, this is only for students who are enrolled in grades 9 and 10. There are 3 components to this assessment: reading, math, and science. We will have a complete comprehensive training. Usually that happens end of January, beginning of February. So just watch AD memos or AD meetings for that announcement to be made. And yes, remote administration is still going to be available for any student who is receiving all of their instruction in a remote setting for all those content areas. For UTIPs, we had our training yesterday. It has been posted to our assessment YouTube channel, and I will include the link in our AD memo that goes out next week. It just wasn't ready to go into the slides that had to be done previously, so take note of that. As a reminder with UTIPs, yes, it's still around and it's available for everybody, K-12. Happy to help however we can. If you have questions with that though, let me know. Or if you're a new assessment director, I can create your account for you and then show you how to create accounts for other users in your LEA. When it comes to ACT, please expect your schedule of events in mid-October. They are working on that as we speak, so it should be coming shortly. But in the meantime, you can still go to ACT now and go through your administration roles and see what's coming up. You can manage schools in your LEA if you still currently have access. I will say though, if you are new to ACT now and do not have access currently, I cannot help you with that because I don't have it either. So when that happens, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you with that account too, but it's not ready yet. We do have some ACT training dates available for you. The first one is the accommodations training link. The Zoom is linked right here for you for that September 11th training. We will also include the following training Zoom links in upcoming AD meetings and memos, so be aware of that. These trainings will now also be recorded by Emily, so they will be available on our assessment YouTube channel for easier access for you. There is the ACT annual workshop in-person event, which is happening next week if you are interested in signing up for that. The virtual workshop that was previously messaged, however, has been canceled. But if you enrolled in that workshop event like I did, you know it's already been canceled because you got your email. But the nice lady whose name eludes me, who is going to run that, is actually going to reach out to you and conduct any one-on-one question answer type things with you if you had signed up for that. So be aware, if you signed up, she will be reaching out to you soon to schedule a time with you for some one-on-one state-specific workshop questions. You're still obviously welcome to attend any of the national workshops, but note that it's not necessarily specific to our state contract. Is ACT now where we choose our ACT testing window?
Yes.
Yes, Scott says yes. All right, the other thing that's new with ACT is there is going to be some scheduling flexibility effective for our spring 2026 administration. Your testing coordinator can decide if schools test in one day or over two. And when we say over two, it's just a teeny tiny bit of flexibility in that science and or writing, if you have elected to do that, but Utah does science, okay, can be administered separately on a second day. So if you choose to do that, you are welcome to, or you can continue to do the entirety of the battery in one day. It also allows for an extended break when administering all tests in one day. I've given an example on the next slide of what that might look like. This is not like a set in stone thing that you have to do. These are just examples of what same-day testing schedules or a two-day testing schedule might look like if you choose to do something like that. For students who have signed up for the My Answer key, we were notified that those are available 2 to 3 weeks after scores are published, and they can actually be ordered up to 6 months after the test date has been completed. So if you have students who are interested in that service but didn't sign up for it previously, they actually can still do that with a really short window of time because again, it's up to 6 months after their completion. So they might want to think about that quickly if they didn't before. And again, schedule events will come out mid-October. Is Jessica on to do accommodations or are we doing those for her? I couldn't remember.
She's not.
Okay.
Okay.
So new for 2026, there's going to be 3 different deadlines to submit initial accommodations for and then EL supports for those students. The 3 dates are going to be associated with the test events window that you choose to select. Okay. Those dates will be listed in the schedule of events when it becomes available. So just kind of be watching for that. And then there's just the reminder for the training for accommodations that is happening September 11th. And you can contact Jessica or ACT for any questions that are going through that you need help with accommodations. For ACT accommodations, this is actually really important. All of the resources for those accommodations are under the ACT Now Utah website under resources and tips. There's a link that says request accommodations. So that's where you're going to want to look for some of those resources that are for accommodation specific. And a small plug here for ACT prep. Utah still does have their contract with SHMOOP, and every high school student and even down to 8th grade has access to SHMOOP with all sorts of prep tools that are available. You just go to solutions.shmoop.com/Utah, find your school, create your sign-in. The magic word this year is fry sauce, which of course I'm incredibly inclined to think is awesome. And then you can just join your class and get started. If you need help with SHMOOP, they have 2 different accounts that you can contact. They have a helpline, which is the support@shmoop.com, but they also have a specific one for training. If you're wanting specific training or going through things just a little more one-on-one, you can email success@shmoop.com. And my last slide are some documents that SHMOOP has provided that when I looked through them, this is my first time working with SHMOOP, that I found to be really helpful. They have a 1-pager. They have a test prep student guide that you can provide for students, as well as one for teachers. There's a boot camp guide that kind of provides a timeline for when you can complete things. There's a data guide, which you can print out and students can write their scores on things as they complete some of those practice tests and follow through. So all great resources that are available to you if you choose to use them, but they are not required for your use. But obviously, I mean, anything that's gonna help a kid be more successful is a great thing to at least explore for a little bit. And I am done, and I'm happy to still answer questions in the chat for the next few minutes, and Acadians can now happen. Yes, Jasmine, students populate RISE through UTREX. If they're not in there, that's when you want to reach out to Maureen.
What slide did we jump to?
Back to 65.
Thank you. All right, Barry, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start us off. All right, so you can see Dallas and myself, our contact information. The way we've organized the slides, now that you've seen them really fast backwards.
It'll be a test.
Yeah, we have just general information connected to both reading and math, and then we separate specific information into the separate topics. So we'll go through some of the general information for both. So we have links in the slides for the state and LEA level data that we provide throughout the year. This is the end of year data, but we've provided middle and beginning of year as well. So any questions on that, you can contact us. But this is data for last year. And then we did provide a training for new assessment directors. We recorded that training. So you have a link to the recording of the training as well as the slide deck that we used. And we covered 3 real big pieces there, and that is the ALO system, looking at reports and getting around the system, rostering, and accommodations as well.
Okay, so for accessing classes, many of you have noticed that it's just listing out grade levels. And so Maureen had talked about this earlier. We're trying to get a fix for this. In the meantime, this doesn't help with assessing or with testing teams, but in the meantime, if you wanted to look at student results and data, you can access it another way. Emily, we go to the next slide, please. So instead of going to the classes and groups, you can click on staff. And then if you were to click on the teacher's name, next slide. And then the third option below there will list their class, and then you can click view next to the class, and then next slide, it will show you the student list. So that is a simpler way to get to student results and data, is just accessing it through the staff rather than through accessing it through the classes. Like I said, that doesn't help with assessing, but will help with looking at student results and data. Slide. So if you were part of assessments last year, we had some misunderstandings come up with pathways of progress and the goals that students were making at the time that they were assessed. So we worked with ALO a lot on this. We really expressed to them the importance of needing to know students' goals and where they needed to be by the time we tested. So ALO was super accommodating. They were willing to work with us, and we came up with a compromise that we feel like will be a much better solution than what we were running into last year. So last year they were taking the goal and they were putting it at the midpoint of the last 3 months of the school year. So that typically ended up being about April 15th for most people, which, as you all know, is before our testing window even opens. So that was a little bit of a problem, but now they have adjusted it so that the pathway goal will be showing for the last day set in your testing window in ALO. So in ALO, you can only set a 4-week testing window. The goal will correlate to the last day of that window. Next slide, please. So just like on here, when you go in and set your testing window, like I said, you can see there for the end of year, the last day is May 12th. So that is the date that will correlate to the student's target pathway goal.
However, take account that if you test past the last day, because you can test past the last day, especially for those larger districts who need some extra testing time, the aim line will continue to move up. So you can see on this slide, there's the initial goal that was set. So that is going to be the last day of your testing window set in ALO. But if you assess after that, the student is still expected to continue to make more progress because they've had more days of instruction. So the aim line is going to continue past that if you assess outside of that window that you have set in ALO. Slide, please. So just make sure that you're setting appropriate goals with your timelines in consideration. So please have high expectations for your students. And like I said with the last one, if you are taking the full 8-week window and you are assessing outside of the 4 weeks that you put into ALO, you'll need to remember that students' goals are going to be higher at that point. So there's a graphic here. I kind of wanted to talk about setting those high expectations, setting those goals. The middle graph there, this is all the same student. The middle graph there shows that if they were to get a composite score of 125, then they would be making typical growth. However, if they got a composite score of 124, so just 1 point less, it would be below typical growth. But if they got a composite score of 164, it still puts it into that typical growth band. So as you're setting your goals for students, please try to aim towards the higher part of that typical band or even above typical or well above typical. This will just help with minimizing any problems that we have if it comes to testing outside of that testing window. If you have any questions about that, please let me know.
There's a question in the chat.
So just to clarify, that target won't move unless we test after EOI, depending on when students test within that EOI window. Correct. So that target is specifically for that day. So the last day of your window is the target. So the student on, if your last day is May 12th, then that's their goal to reach on May 12th. So if you test before and they reach it before May 12th, that's awesome, great. But if you test after May 12th, their goal is going to continue to increase. Hopefully that helps.
That's the 4-week window in ALO.
Yep, your 4 week, so not the 8-week window given by the state. It's the 4-week window that you set in ALO, because unfortunately we can only set 4 weeks in ALO. So the last day of the 4-week window set in ALO. You know the exact numbers kids need to make typical growth. So when teachers go into each individual student's profile, they can go in and set these goals. And each goal for each student is going to be different because it depends on where the student is starting. So they'll have to go in and look at individual students.
There was another question. Last year, they tested in the window and several did not make pathways because it's changed.
Correct. That's because their goal was for about April 15th. Their goal was for the middle of the last 3 months of school, which everyone tested after that date. So like we were talking about, that aim line continues to move up. They all tested after that date. So they actually had a higher goal that they were trying to reach because they had more instruction. So we're trying to minimize that problem now because their goal date is actually within their testing window because that's what you have set in your ALO system.
Acadians changed it.
Yes, Acadians changed it for us, which we were very grateful for them doing. So the middle of year, so it's their end of year goal. The middle of year is kind of like a checkup to see how they're doing towards reaching that goal.
I'm not sure on the middle of year timeline. We'll have to ask.
Okay. No, you do not need to test earlier. You don't need to test earlier. It'll just match up better to your testing window. So you put in your testing window, the last day of your testing window will tell you what goal the student needs to make by that last day. So if you are going to be taking the full 8 weeks, just remember that aim line is going to go up. But if you're not taking the full 8 weeks and you're taking the 4 weeks that are set in your ALO system, then it will correlate exactly with that. Okay.
Can you see growth by measure?
Yes, you can see growth by measure. You can do this in two different ways. You can do it with the goal setting tool that will tell you each measure what their goal should be. And then after benchmarks, you can go in and you can change. There's a little caret that'll allow you to change from the reading composite score to each measure, and it will show you how much growth they made for that measure. Feel free to send me an email. I can send some screenshots and things that will explain that a little bit better. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we've already hit on this. Please make sure that your dates that you've set in your window or set in ALO are accurate. Like Maureen said, no students will roster until these are set. Also, your first day of school, your school year start date has to match the first day of school. This is not your first day you plan on testing. That's where you get into the benchmark testing windows, but your school year start date and your school year end date have to be your first day of school and your last day of school. This will help us with minimizing rostering problems. It also helps us with pathways things, but please make sure that your first day of school matches your school year start date. And again, I touched on this before, but the ALO system only allows you to set a testing window for 4 weeks. You can use the entire 8-week window that's set by the state. So you can assess after the last day of your window. Next. And here are the testing windows for you, just so you have a reminder of those windows, what they are and what you can do your 4 weeks within. Next. And then if you want more information on setting initial goals, we have the links there for both reading and math. These are provided by ALO and they just give you some more information on setting those goals and how to do it. Next slide. You did get a question. If we have a testing window that is 2 weeks before winter break and 2 weeks after break, how would we set it? Because it technically is 6 weeks with break. So the first, you cannot assess until that first day hits in the window. So set your testing window for the first day you plan on assessing and do it 4 weeks from there. And then you can continue to assess after the last day of the window. So set it for the first 4 weeks, but you can assess those 2 weeks afterwards when you get back. Do we need to set goals or does ALO set them for us? ALO will set an initial goal for you, which is typically a really good place to start. But teachers can go in and adjust those goals if they want to try to reach higher expectations for students or if they know their students better and know what they're capable of doing. So an initial goal will be set, but it can be modified and changed. Next slide.
Okay, my turn. Alex does all the hard work here. So we've provided in the slides a checklist to think about. Most of you have probably started testing anyway, but we have this checklist that you can follow and share on what needs to be happening. There's a couple of pages of this checklist, so you can see the information there. Next slide. And then page 2. If you have questions, our contact information is there. Next slide. And then you have just another page. So you can follow that checklist, and especially if you have new people unfamiliar with Acadians, this would be a helpful resource to know what they need to be doing next and aware of the steps that they need to be taking. Okay, I'll keep going. So now that's the general information that applied to both Acadians Math and Acadians Reading. So now we'll break it into separate topics. So for math, we've had some questions about ordering materials for math in grades 4 through 6. There was some questions about whether you had to, whether schools had to select the same data entry platform, so ALO manual or ALO digital. And there's a big gap in cost related to both of those. We've worked with the vendor, and so now it's available that individual schools can select either one of those regardless of what the district selects. So this has come into play because a lot of districts, because there is a digital component for grades K through 3, they select ALO digital. But then when it comes to grades 4 through 6, there's not as much benefit, but it costs the same amount. And so now schools who are interested in this can choose ALO manual and pay less for those licenses. And there is contact information there if you're interested in licenses for grades 4 through 6. Next slide. Information, I had some questions about the updated Canvas course for test administration and scoring. So I have the link here for that course. It's been updated for this current year. And then just Google Doc with training information. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and I can answer those.
Okay, so for Acadians reading, also Teresa just pointed out to me and realized that for those of you who are having a hard time with assessing because of the class names currently happening in ALO, if you are creating groups for math to assess for math, you could also use those same groups to assess for reading too. So you could assess for reading or math, either one, by creating groups, and that might help also to minimize the problems. Side note. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then we're just going to cover some training things really quick. Just a reminder that everyone does have to be trained on ALO before they give the Acadians assessment. So this is specifically for Acadians reading. There is a Midas course being offered on August 29th. This is for all new Acadians reading assessors. So this is for those who have never used the ALO platform. This could be like new teachers to the field. This would also be someone who, if they've given the ORF assessment, but now they're teaching a lower grade and they need to give the NWF assessment and they have never given that assessment, this is something that those people will want to register for and join me on August 29th. Next slide, please. For those who have already been trained on the ALO platform, for just a little refresh, just a reminder of how to do things, some extra practice with scoring, they can take this Canvas course that will just help them, like I said, with those things, just a little refresh. So there's the link for the Canvas course for those who have already been trained on the ALO platform. And next slide, please. This is another Canvas course that has some recorded audios that are just helpful with practicing giving the reading assessment on ALO. It's one of those things of practice makes better. So the more practice you can do before giving the assessment, the better. So this is, like I said, just a course with some extra audios for some additional practice. Utah Compose, just really quickly, for any questions related to content, please contact me, Dallas Brooks, for anything related to rostering. Please reach out to Maureen Rushing. We do have a crosswalk that will show you how Utah Compose and the ELA writing standards are aligned. So if you want more information about that, I've put this link in here where it will take you to that document so you can see the link between the assessed traits on Utah Compose and how you can correlate those to the writing standards. Next slide. And the PEEP assessment. If you have any questions about the PEEP assessment, please reach out to me, Dallas Brooks. We do know right now with the platform, it is not rostering online automatically. So in the meantime, because we are in the testing window, you can give the PEEP assessment using paper and then input data in afterwards once the rostering gets up and working. Hopefully that should be working by the beginning of next week, fingers crossed. Next slide, please. We do have the annual PEEP report ready for last school year. So I have put the link right there in this slide if you would like to access that. And next slide. just some entry testing information for PEEP. The testing window is the 4 weeks before school through the 4 weeks after the first day of school. So we're right in the middle of that testing window for most people. Please ensure that your teachers have the appropriate role assigned to them on the data gateway. Ensure that the people who are giving this assessment have taken either the PEEP entry course if they have never given it before, or the PEEP entry refresh if they have been trained on the PEEP before. And then just a quick reminder that all of the data for entry must be entered into the data gateway by September 30th. That's it.
Is that?
We've done this one.
Yeah, this one's good.
Right there. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to Tracy.
Oh, and there's actually.
Oh, she's here.
Say her name when she walks in.
I was already turning. Perfect timing. Hey, look at that. You want me to do my slides?
Yeah.
Before I run to my next department's meeting in 30 minutes? I'm happy to do them. I was all ready to go. It's fun bridging 3 departments now. Okay. I'll introduce myself because I wasn't here last time either. For those that don't know me, I'm Tracy Gooley. I am, because we don't know what I'm doing. I am one of our special education assessment specialists here at USBE. So I help with accommodations, accessibility in PEEP, Acadians. I work with Megan, with Rita, and then I oversee all of our alternate assessments for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. Okay, so high level, what are the things you need to know right now? Last year's score reports are in. You can find them in Educator Portal. Please get those out to parents, students, along with information on how to interpret those scores. As soon as possible, parent-teacher conference is great, first IEP meetings if they come about. So please get those out. As district level users, you guys have a host of reports available to you at aggregate levels, but you also do have those individual student score reports. Teachers, remember, will not have access to those to get to parents until students are rostered to them. So you at the district need to figure out how you're gonna get those ISRs out to teachers so that they can go home to parents. We are hoping, I don't know if Maureen covered this or not, but we are hoping to start doing DLM loads by September. We were hoping by last week. So anytime now, I don't know, Maureen, that's it. We're in the next couple weeks, we're hoping to get those DLM loads going as soon as possible. So please make sure that 1% flag is 1% alternate assessment flag is set in those SIS systems. So as soon as we get those loads rolling, those kids will dump in. And of course, we will let you know, send out an AD memo, let you know when those loads start happening. So in the meantime, you can be working on teacher accounts. Okay, go ahead. Just some screenshots. Where do you find all those score reports? So under the reports tab, I don't know if any of you have logged into Educator Portal this year, but it's got a facelift. So it kind of looks a little bit different. There's a cool fancy kite on the home screen. But if you go under reports, go to alternate assessment reports and then end of year and you'll see all your stuff drop in. Okay. The student individual score reports, you can print them individually or you can pull them down as a bundled big PDF and then someone's gonna have to come in and separate them. So whichever way you wanna do it, that's where they're at. Okay, next slide. There is a technical assistant document on how to access score reports as well as many other things like cut points, interpretive guides for teachers, things like that can be found on the district test coordinator Padlet. So there is a column that says score reports. Your teachers also have access to interpretive guides and things that can go home to parents. And there's a great one there, like helping teachers explain score reports to parents. Those are located on the teacher DLM Padlet, that blue-green one under a score report column. So you've got multiple places to find a host of resources to help support you.
The next one is just some DLM links to all those score report interpretive guides. So I have really tried to support you in finding your resources and guides. Okay. The next thing, I will be hosting my DLM district test coordinator training Tuesday, October 21st from 9 to 11. It will be virtual. I record that and then place that on the Padlet afterwards. This is not for teachers. I did have a teacher land in this training last year and she provided me terrible feedback. Shocker. Because it was not relevant. Which I was like, valid, not relevant to you. So this is not the training for teachers. This is only for those in the district that handle that district level, right, supporting teachers. Okay, next. This is the training for teachers. So I bet that teacher's feedback might be a little bit different if she attended this training. So I'm doing a host of them. I've got 4 in person that I'm doing across the state, and then I'll hold 2 virtual. If everything fills up and there's a need, we can open up another virtual if need be. So life is pretty busy this fall. But there's that Midas course. They should be open. You should be able to go ahead and log in and start registering for those courses. So that's the teacher training that I'm doing. Again, optional, not required, but it's probably, if you've got new teachers, it really is a good one to send them to. Okay. And that's it. So there's a link to all my Padlets, and let me know if you have any questions. Oh, wait, I thought of one more thing. Sorry. Okay. There had been some requests in the field to take all of DLM's data extract templates, like the user template, roster template for uploading, and get better alignment in the names of the columns and how they do that. So it's much easier to go from template to template and just start copying and pasting. DLM did that. So they're not going to be in like every column is not going to be the exact same, but at least your name, the name of the columns in the templates will be the same. So you can take your user extract and copy and paste, right? Like the Cactus ID, teacher name, and plug that into the roster template. Does that make sense? So if you had any templates, especially for rostering, because you guys are responsible for rostering, there's a technical assistance document on that coordinator Padlet for that. So if you have any templates that you've rolled off of last year, do not use those. If you try to upload old templates, it's going to fail on you. So make sure when you go in, and if you're doing any uploads that way, make sure you go into those tabs and download the new templates. So I will have more information on that for you again next month. But just so you're aware, those of you that have been doing uploads and templates, they've realigned. So use the new ones that are loaded in the system. Don't use old templates. Now I'm done.
Thank you, Tracy. Right, I think that is the last slide. So we skipped a couple and did some earlier, and I think now that is the end of all of our slides. I do have 2.
Yeah, Elise did.
Yes. We do have 2, one question I want to answer from the chat, and then also a reminder or some information about the assessment team's availability tomorrow. So the question from the chat, Carrie asked the question about when will we know the Acadience math vendor? So the process will be that typically when we have a contract that ends, we have to go out for a competitive bid process. We do an RFP, the committee selects a vendor, and then we work through the contracting phase. So our current contract with Acadience ends in June of 2026. So next summer, our current contract ends. Our problem is, originally when it was legislated that we administer the early numeracy assessment, we were given a budget or a fiscal line item of $300,000, which equated to about $1.50 per student in the kindergarten through 3 students. getting an assessment for that price is almost impossible. A couple years ago, when Acadience Learning developed their digital platform, the assessment department used some of our carry forward funds to supplement those costs for the licenses for the remainder of our contract, but we haven't received any additional funding from the legislature to continue with that level of cost per license per student. So we're looking forward at the legislative session to request some additional funding to administer early numeracy assessments. So we won't be posting that RFP until after the end of the legislative session in March. So we will not know the new early numeracy assessment vendor until we know how much money we can request in our licenses. So we likely won't have that in place until probably May or June in 2026. So it'll be a tight turnaround to get our RFP posted, to score, select a vendor, and then get a contract in place for next year. But we'll keep you all posted of that process as soon as we know more. But we won't know more until we know how much money we have, and then we'll move forward with a competitive bid process. So we won't know more about the early numeracy assessment, but at this point, we know that we have our current contract through June of 2026. So we'll have this Acadience math assessment in place through then, and then we'll keep you all posted as we know more about that process. Okay, and then the other note is just to let you all know, we have an all staff with many of the sections at USBE staff meeting tomorrow. We've been asked to not bring any devices so that we can be paying attention during the meeting. And so no one on the assessment team will have their computers with them all day tomorrow. So if you have questions or emergencies, excuse me, thank you. Maureen was given special permission if there are issues with rostering or things like that. Maureen will have access to look into things, but no one else. So Maureen gets to wear the crown. She will have access, but the majority of people will not be available by phone or email tomorrow. So if you have an emergency, you can try and reach out to us at the end of the day or email Maureen.
Everyone can at 4 o'clock.
I'm assuming that an emergency will most likely be with rostering. That's why Maureen was the only one given special permission to have her device. So if you have something else that's an emergency, Maureen will let us know, and otherwise we will get back with you on Monday. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you again. We appreciate and know this is a lot of information at the beginning of the school year. Please reach out to any of our staff if you have questions about things. We're always happy to answer questions, and appreciate the partnership that we have with all of you. So thank you.